Welcome to episode 104 of the 3M Fair podcast. Not far from the main road, hidden behind thick trees and vines, there is a place that locals avoid talking about. If you dare to visit this place, it looks as if time has stopped. Old crumbling buildings, walls cracked, roofs caved in. It looks like one of those places right out of a haunted story. A place where people have not visited for years, untouched and equally scary. This is Letchworth Village, located in the United States. When it opened in 1911, it was meant to be a place for people with disabilities, people who had real mental health issues but didn't have the place to go to. This place was supposed to be a safe haven for them. But unfortunately, this place did not fulfill that dream. It would turn into some of the people's worst nightmares. In the beginning, everything seemed great. The place was amazing, it was beautifully built, and it had started accommodating a lot of people who needed real help. But as time went on, neglect started. And that's when the real horror began. Today, many people say that a lot of souls are trapped in this village, that people who were once here, who died on this property, have never left this property, or at least their souls haven't. But there are a lot of people who believe that this place is one of the most haunted places. But isn't that something that we talk about with all of the haunted places? We will come to the haunted part later. But first, I want to talk about Letchworth Village, how it was started, why it was started, and in the end, why didn't it fulfill the promise that it was started with? In order to understand what exactly went wrong with Letchworth Village, we have to go back to the beginning. Hello and welcome to the 3am Fear podcast. I'm Nikita Ferrao, mystery and thriller author. On this podcast, I talk about real crimes and real people. Due to the graphic nature of some of this content, listener discretion is advised. You can find the episode show notes on my website 3amfear.com. Let's get started. Letchworth Village was named after William Pryor Letchworth, who was born in 1823 in Brown, New York. He grew up in a very strict family, learning the values of hard work, education, and helping others. By his teens, he was working full time, and later on in life, he would become very rich. But despite becoming very rich, he never actually spent all of his money on himself. In fact, he would end up spending a lot of the money trying to help others. Throughout his life, he had seen how people with disabilities or mental health issues were treated. And he didn't want that on his worst enemy. And that's how Letchworth Village was born. He wanted to create this safe space where people with real problems could be brought in, treated with respect, and then sent out once they recovered. At least that was his dream. Letchworth Village was meant to be more modern for its time. It started off as that, but over time it turned out to be people's worst nightmare. The building started to become overcrowded. Money was an issue. There were less staff and more people. People were not treated properly. The institution that was once created to take in people, treat them well, help them recover, and leave was now turned into a money making machine. And William Letchworth had nothing to do with it. We'll come to that part. William Letchworth always stuck to his belief till the end of his life that he wanted to create a place, a safe haven for people with disabilities. So, no, he was not behind a money making machine. It was the other people who turned this place into a money making machine, ultimately running that place into devastation. Some witnesses who got to see this place would go on to say that they saw patients walking around naked. Many of them looked like they hadn't been fed in days. Some of them were covered in their own feces. And the worst part of all, many of them were sleeping on the floor, which means they weren't even given a proper bed to sleep in. But can you believe something even more worse than that? People were used for treatments that was equal to torture. By the 1970s, reporters started investigating. What they found shocked the country. But for many residents, it was too late. Many people died on this property. Unfortunately, we would not know who these people were. But remember, as I said, this facility was overflowing with people. So, unfortunately, many of the people who died in that facility, we would never know who they were. Today, that place is abandoned. Many people talk about how the people who died there, whose bodies were never claimed, their souls roam around. But again, as I said, in this episode, we are not going to talk about the haunted aspect of it. A little bit in the end, but I want to focus more on the suffering of the people. One man decided to make a facility to help others, and some money hungry people decided to turn it into people's worst nightmare. William Letchworth made his fortune as a partner in an iron company called Pratt and Letchworth. Unlike many rich men, he did not spend his money on fancy things. He wanted to keep it quiet and help others. He never married, he never had children, so all his focus was going on working and helping others. In the 1870s, Buffalo, New York, was full of poverty. Many families had no home, children were often neglected, abused, or left to survive on their own. In 1872, Letchworth started the Buffalo Children's Aid Society to protect these children from harm. In 1873, he joined the New York State Board of Charities. He visited orphanages, asylums, poor homes, and juvenile jails. What he saw in these places shocked him. People were treated worse than animals. They were not given enough food. They were not given a proper place to stay in. They were not looked after. They were not even given the treatment that they wanted. And this is the main reason why he wanted to start Letchworth Village. The places that he saw, at least to him, looked worse than prisons. And so he decided, why not start a place of my own? A place where people could not only live peacefully, but also contribute to the society. Now, as I said, William Letchworth was not a bad person. He did not create this place to torture people. Neither did he create it as a money pit. Remember, he was wealthy. He wasn't married. He didn't have children. He didn't have a lot of responsibilities. If he wanted, he could have easily spent all his money and lived a very lavish life. But that's not what he wanted. He wanted to help people. When William Letchworth saw these places where people were literally being tortured, he imagined something different. A small village with cottages instead of big cold buildings. Farmlands where residents could work and enjoy some fresh air. And most important of all, doctors on duty. Doctors who could help people. And remember, this was the 1800s. There were a lot of illnesses that people didn't have medication for or didn't have a cure for as we do today. Even more than that, people didn't know which symptom was for which problem. For example, if someone is having depression today, they can easily get counseling, and worst to worst case scenario, you have medication for it. But at that time, depression was looked at as a disease that you could not cure, and so people with depression were immediately sent to asylums. And in this case, Letchworth Village. And even with depression at that time, the laws were very loose. People didn't know exactly what happened in depression. So if someone was acting out, let's say that there is a young boy who is now entering his teens, he is going to act out. Every teenager, as they enter into their teens, start acting out in some way or the other. So, the smallest of acting out, let's say a teenager is not listening to their parents. The parents immediately thought something is wrong with this child and they would send this child to asylums. And in this case, Letchworth Village. What the parents didn't know then was that it was very easy to get someone into one of these facilities, but it was equally difficult to get them out. William would often go to these facilities to see these people, and when he saw these people, he realized that many of them were not actually sick. They were just acting out as teenagers. Some of them were simply moody. And so he decided that Letchworth Village would be a place for them. A place where the parents, if they wanted, could get them committed, and then the doctors at Letchworth Village would help them out. If they were in depression, there would be doctors to help them out. That was his idea behind creating Letchworth Village. By the late 1800s, asylums in America had become dumping grounds. Families would sometimes just get their relatives, their kids, whomever they didn't want or thought that maybe they were having some issues, and would dump them into these facilities. And the worst part of all was that you didn't need medical proof to get people into these facilities. One boy, Henry Fraser, was sent to an asylum in New Orleans in 1893 because his mother would go on to say that the boy had become uncontrollable and that he was masturbating to exhaustion, something that every teenage boy does today. But at that time, the mother was so scared that she sent her boy to a facility. And this was not just about Henry. Many other boys had similar fates. And same thing with girls. You act out, you are immediately sent to a facility. Once admitted, it was almost impossible to leave. In 1904, it was said that less than 30% of the patients were the ones who came, recovered, and left. When William Letchworth saw how broken the system was, how there were not enough laws, how no one was checking anything, he decided, I'm going to create Letchworth Village and make sure that everyone is recovered, and the people who are not recovered would be there long term, but at least in a happy place. Now let's talk about how William Letchworth found this place. On a train ride from New York City, he crossed a high bridge over Portage Falls Gorge, and below him he saw waterfalls crashed into a deep canyon surrounded by thick forests. A friend later said Letchworth saw a perfect masterpiece. He knew, as soon as he saw this place, he knew this was going to be the place for him. In 1859, at the age of 36, he bought a piece of land there. He spent the amount that is equal to $18 million today on buying that piece of land. He built trails, stone bridges, fountains, lakes. He didn't want to make money, he just wanted to make sure that the place looked beautiful. In 1906, he gave his 1,000-acre estate to New York State on one condition: he could live there till the day he died. 4 years later, at the age of 87, he passed away in his beloved home. And after he died, Letchworth Village changed. In 1911, Letchworth Village opened in Rockland County, New York. At first, it looked exactly like Letchworth's dream. It had small cottages instead of prison-like wards, farmland instead of locked rooms. Everything looked perfect. But as time went on, things started to change. By this time, Letchworth was not around. He had long passed away. New York was having a lot of problems with people not having space to live in. New York had around 12,000 people who were said to be feeble-minded. And when I say feeble-minded, I mean people who thought that their loved ones or the people that they knew had some mental conditions, but actually it was just normal conditions, at least for most of them. Otherwise, just imagine 12,000 people having mental health conditions. The waiting list was really long, and that's where Letchworth Village came in. As soon as Letchworth Village opened, it started filling up fast. But unfortunately, the founder's dream was now turned into something much darker. Letchworth Village was advertised as a place where people with disabilities could come and live. But in actual, it was a place where people who had nowhere else to go could come and stay. It was a way to erase people from society. People who didn't have a home, people who had issues, they were meant to be erased from the society. And that is where Letchworth came in. When people were being brought in, it was even said that the ones who were feeble minded or who had some serious issues should be kept separate from the ones who didn't have a lot of issues. Now, there is something to be known about Letchworth village, which is that they wanted the best of the best. They were taking in people whom no one else was taking in. But at the same time, they were trying to take in people who had something to offer. There were universities, wealthy donors, and more who were waiting for the best of the best to be brought into Letchworth, and then parts of them would be taken. The first residents weren't families looking after their loved ones. They were 100 boys moved from Randall's Island Juvenile Detention Center in 1911. Newspapers would go on to say that these boys had potential. So basically, free labor. When these boys came to Letchworth village, there was nothing. The whole cottage idea and this beautiful place to live in did not exist. These 100 boys were put in charge of helping build those cottages. So basically, free labor. These boys had no dormitories, no beds, nothing. They basically had to build everything from scratch. Over time, the campus would grow to over 2,000 acres. This campus was divided into 6 sections: improvable boys, improvable men, infirm men, improvable girls, improvable women, and infirm women. Eventually, they would go on to have more than 130 buildings. From the outside, all these buildings looked beautiful, but from the inside, they looked nothing less than rotten. All these so called improvable patients were forced to work. Again, free labor. They had to work in farms, bake bread, clean the places, look after this whole institute. While from the outside, everyone was told that the people who were taken into Letchworth village were living a very nice life and were slowly recovering. But in reality, they were forced to work. There were schools, a hospital, labs, a bakery, barns, and a power plant. Everything was there that was needed for a village to run. And for them, they had free labor who was running this. It is said that people did not just move into Letchworth village, they vanished into it. Once you get in, you can't get out. And for those people who unfortunately fall into the category where they are almost good, unfortunately, they have no escape. Because remember, Letchworth village needs free labor. And in case, God forbid, something happens to you and you die, your parts would be sold. The patients were divided into 3 groups: the moron group, the imbecile group, and the idiot group. The people who were in the idiot group were said that they should not even be there because the state did not want them at all. In 1921, out of 5,000 patients, more than 3,100 patients were between the ages of 5 and 16. 11 patients were under 5 years old. Can you imagine 11 kids under the age of 5 having mental health problems? At first, the facility followed its promise of giving every patient an acre of land. But as time passed and more patients started to come in, this promise was broken. And soon, people didn't even have beds to sleep on. They had to sleep on the floor. In 1932, a famous photographer named Margaret Bourke White was invited by the governor to take photos. Her picture showed smiling patients, clean rooms, and a peaceful community. But all of that was staged, just for the photograph. Once she left, everything went back to its normal state, a state of filth. By the 1940s, the population had almost doubled. In 1946, another photographer named Irving came to take photos. But this time was different. Irving did not take permission from the state to have controlled images, like just showing that the place is good and the place is great, come, admit your family members. No. He wanted to show how the facility actually looked like. Adults and children, some of them were completely naked and were walking around. Some were just covered in their own filth. People sleeping on the floor, people doing work. Majority of the patients looked like they were starving, that they were not given enough food. The public was outraged. They demanded that something be done. But unfortunately, Letchworth village still went on. There was no action taken. Now, the cruelty in this village wasn't just about not giving enough food, not giving proper clothes, or making them sleep on the floor, but also there was medical cruelty that was going on. Some of the few residents who managed to get out of Letchworth village would go on to talk about the so called medical care. Hundreds of sick children were fed from the same dirty spoon. One man, A.G. Moore, said that his brother Everett was sent there at the age of 11 because their mother had no money, no help, no safe place to keep them, and so she decided, I'm going to send my son to Letchworth village where he would be taken care of. She was told that Letchworth had trained professionals, a perfect place to stay, and that her son would grow up to be a great man. Instead of having a safe place, Everett would spend the next 20 years of his life trapped in hell. Something even worse was happening behind closed doors. That is, the professionals in Letchworth village were keeping track of bloodlines. They were trying to see which patients had the best family history, and based on that, actions were taken. Like, for instance, if someone needed a donor and they wanted to make sure that the donor came from a really good family so that they didn't have any issues in the future, then this is where Letchworth came in. Letchworth village would become the first place in the United States to try electroshock therapy. Unfortunately, some patients would die, but worse, many of them suffered lifelong after effects. In the 1930s and 1940s, doctors would even drill into people's skulls. They would also perform lobotomies, that is, drilling into your eyes so that it would hit the right nerve in your brain, trying to help you become a better person. But these lobotomies or these brain drilling sessions would often leave people worse than they were before. A majority of the patients were left disabled for life. By the 1950s, the facility had become even worse by doing experiments on children. In January of 1948, on a cold, rainy morning, one of those scientists, Dr. Hillary, would make history in a disturbing way. At home, he put strange ingredients in a blender, ground rat brains, and live polio virus. He put all of this into a blender, blended it, and then ate it. He said that it tasted like cod liver oil. And later on, he would go on to say that this mixture that he made actually vaccinated him against polio. And so, once this was done, he decided that if he was vaccinated against polio, then why not the children at Letchworth village? At that time, there was no cure, no injections, nothing for polio. There is no cure for polio, but there is, of course, an injection that you can take to prevent polio. But that also was not there. So, when this doctor came forward and said, I made this mixture, I ate it tasted like cod liver oil, and now I'm vaccinated, they jumped to it. What the professionals then didn't understand was that maybe he was immune, or maybe there was something else because of which he didn't get polio. But they didn't care. 2 years later, Letchworth village would invite children to give them this exact mixture. Between 17 and 20 children got this mixture. Unfortunately, many of them did get polio, and there were many children who died. But Letchworth did not give out the information to how many children got polio or how many died. The official reports would say that no one got sick. But there are a lot of children's gravestones in Letchworth village right now, which means that children did die. They just covered it up. There was another researcher called Dr. George Jervis who wanted to study a genetic disorder called PKU. His test required taking blood from patients, so he forced his patients to give blood to the extent that many of them were left anemic. Now, unfortunately, the patients did not have the luxury to say no, and their families either did not care or were never informed about it. Through the 1960s, Letchworth became more and more crowded. There were 5,000 patients all jammed into this building. They had 70 beds in each dorm, but even then, it was not enough. Hundreds of patients slept in the hallway on mattresses. Nurses had very less time between each patient, so sometimes they would try to hurry up and push the pills into the patient's mouth, forcing them to almost choke. Many of the patients who could not eat food by themselves and needed help from the nurses were sometimes forced to eat food by nurses literally pushing the food down their throat. It is said that some of the patients even died because of this. But unfortunately, there was nothing that they could do because Letchworth was not paying people enough to come and work. When patients died at Letchworth, their brains would be taken and preserved in jars, while the rest of the body would be buried in a cemetery far away. That's why no one, until years later, found out what was actually happening behind those four walls. In 1972, a young ABC News reporter, Geraldo Rivera, snuck in with his camera. He found footage that horrified everyone. As I had already mentioned, patients were crammed in, they were living under very sick, very horrible circumstances, and all of this was captured on camera. The law said each person should have 80 square feet of space, but Letchworth patients were given only 35 square feet of space. One ward in the hospital stood completely empty. This was not because there were not enough patients. Remember, many of the patients were still sleeping on the floor because there were not enough beds. This ward was completely empty because they didn't want to hire new staff. And only because of that reason, an entire ward was empty. By the late 1970s, the horror had changed. The Rockland County Medical Examiner began noticing a pattern. Patients there were dying in a very similar way. They were given so many tranquilizers, so many injections that they themselves did not know what they were doing, or they themselves could not feel anything. If they vomited after giving an injection, they would choke on their own vomit and die. In 1978, 30% of the 110 deaths were linked to tranquilizers. After Geraldo's expose, that is, he sneaked in the camera and then he showed what was happening inside, Letchworth's popularity started to decrease, and so did their patients. Less and less people were now trying to get into Letchworth. Patients started to move to group homes, they started to look for better facilities, and Letchworth's popularity started to decrease. 1996, 80 years after Letchworth had opened, it shut down. Many people say that it is haunted by the ghosts of the people who died there. That place was a place of terror, fear, and torture. There is a no trespassing sign there, but people have been going there to check out the place, not inside, but to check out the place from far. Some people have gone on to say that they have seen these pale figures roaming around Letchworth, but these are all thoughts or thinking processes. Or do you think that it could be real? Real ghosts? Today, Letchworth Village is a ghost. William Letchworth wanted to help others, but unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to help others. His dream went into the hand of corrupted people that just ended up tormenting everyone. I have done an in-depth episode on another place called Penhurst Asylum. It went through a very similar phase to that of Letchworth. I will link the episode in the description. I'm planning to redo that episode because there is a lot more to the story that I found out much later on, especially with found footage. I'm not sure if I can share that found footage here on YouTube, so I'll definitely link that, but we will discuss about the found footage. For now, the story of Letchworth Village comes to an end. Usually I ask, I would like to know from you what do you think, but for this episode, I feel like we are talking more from the torture and more from the suffering point of view than from the horror point of view. I don't think anyone knows to what extent people were tortured inside Letchworth. We just know what was caught on camera, a little bit of what was told on the outside, but we don't know what worse could have actually happened inside. From now on, I'll try to make more of video episodes. Please stay with me. I have a very bad cold and I'm also going to be traveling, but I'll try my best to make more of video episodes. Maybe the background will be a little different, but yeah, I'll try my best to do more video episodes. The next few episodes are going to be a little longer, and when I say a little longer, I mean maybe 2 to 3 episodes for one story. That's because I'm trying to cover more of serial killer episodes, and these episodes are not short. And some of the cult case episodes also, they are not short. They are like 2 to 3 hour long episodes, and I don't want to put them all together. If you want me to put them all together, I will eventually put them together if you want. Otherwise, I'll be just chopping them into shorter episodes and uploading them. That will be easier to consume. Now, before my voice starts to quiver with cold, thank you so much for being here today, and see you next week.